it's always a hard question, but I really like chickadees. I like chestnut-backed chickadees. I think that will be the one I go with. Hi, Sonia. Ooh, nice. Hummingbirds are really awesome.
Great.
Hi, Uri. I hope I'm saying your name right. And you're 6.5. That's awesome. Fantastic. And then we also have Jenny, Katie, and Anna. From Nelson. Yeah, we were watching a hummingbird this morning. They're among our favorites. That's awesome. I really love hummingbirds. Hi, William from Queensboro. Don't have a favorite bird yet. That's okay. That's okay. There's so many birds. It's really hard to choose just one favorite bird. And hi, Tene. I also hope I'm saying your name right. Tene from Surrey. And my favorite bird is the harpy eagle. That is a really good one. I wish we had that one in Canada.
Yeah. I can introduce myself too. I'm Graham. I'm in Delta, British Columbia. And my favorite bird is the northern shrike.
And we have, yeah, Uri is in downtown New West. Cool. So I guess we might as well start now. Okay, cool. Yeah, so welcome. I am Caroline, as I said. If you haven't yet, put in kind of your name, favorite bird, and where you're tuning in from in the chat. Hi, Raiden, and hi, Anna and Luca.
Favorite bird?
And Misha. Oh my goodness, we're really starting to get lots of people. So awesome. I guess we might as well get started and get to the next slides, if that's all right, Graham.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Okay, we've done that already, so we might as well, yeah, just jump into the birding basics. So birds, there are so many birds, and they can be really hard to identify sometimes, but we can use lots of clues as we're birding to try and figure out what kind of birds we're seeing. And I don't know, whenever I'm, I guess, teaching people about bird watching, a lot of people go straight to color, and color is an amazing way to identify birds sometimes, but there are also a lot of other clues we can use, like habitat, behavior, size, and shape. Yeah, and so, yeah, for example, all of these birds, they're all black and white, but there are other clues that we can use to kind of tell them apart. So color is good, but we should also look at other things as well. All right, let's continue then, Graham. Yeah, so habitat is actually a really, really fantastic way to kind of narrow down what the options are for the birds that we're looking at. So northern harrier is a really cool bird of prey, and that one we'd expect to see mostly in like flying over open fields and marshes, and we wouldn't necessarily expect to see it in a forest. So if we're looking at a bird of prey in the forest, then we can, you know, probably rule out northern harrier, because that probably won't be in that kind of habitat. Yeah, next. Yeah, and behavior is also a really, really good clue. So when we're looking at different kinds of sparrows, for example, then, you know, taking note of whether it's on the ground or whether it's in the tree is a really good way to also help narrow down what the species is. The northern harrier, which is the picture on the left, that's the one I was talking about before. That one, you know, often likes to glide over marshes and open fields. And then you'll have this green-winged teal here on the bottom. It's a duck, so you'll often see them kind of in little ponds and wetlands. And then the great blue herons, you'll often see them kind of standing in water or sometimes in trees, because they like to nest in trees. So those are also, behavior is a good clue for identifying them. All right, next. Yeah, and size. Size is so important. I wonder, I guess you can answer in the chat. Have any of you seen a downy woodpecker or hairy woodpecker? They're really cool birds that are black and white. I think we had a picture of one before. Braden says no. TBC says no. William says no. Well, that is oh, cool. Jenny's seen one. Yeah, so they're really cool birds. maybe if you have a chance to get out in the next few days, and they're fairly common, so maybe you'll be able to find one. But there's downy woodpecker and hairy woodpecker. They look so similar, but one is like twice the size of the other. So size is a really great way to kind of tell the difference between those two. All right, next. And field marks. So here we have, field marks are definitely, they're kind of like key things to look for. Often when you'll open up a bird field guide, certain field guides will tell you to look out for certain things. So again, going back to the northern harrier, that awesome bird of prey that likes gliding over marshes. Yes, that one. One awesome thing to look out for is its white butt. As a white bum, and that's pretty distinctive among raptors. So if you see one, you can, that's kind of one way of telling that, oh, it could be a northern harrier. Another thing to look out for is in song sparrows. Song sparrows have that, you know, big dark splotch on its chest, and that's also kind of a good way to figure out that it's a song sparrow, because a lot of sparrows can be really confusing sometimes. So those are just some of the ways that we can use field marks as well. All right, I think we can go on to this now. So here we have, there are oftentimes birds that look really similar to each other, and sometimes it's hard to tell what the differences are. So here we have two birds. You may have seen them before, and I'm wondering in the chat, what are the differences that you see, and do you maybe know what these birds already are? Oh my gosh, these, oh my goodness. Okay, Tane already knows that the one on the left is a dark-eyed junco and the one on the right is a spotted towhee. Nice. And let's take a look what you have said. So eye color is different. Yeah, eye color is can be a really good way sometimes to tell different species apart. You usually have to get really close to a bird to actually see the eye color, but definitely the spotted towhee does have red eyes, and that's a great way to tell. Katie, yeah, also noticed the eyes. Beak color is different. Yeah, for sure. Juncos have a very pale beak, and spotted towhees have black bills. Yeah, junco and towhee, nice Uri. The one on the right has red eyes and some orange. That's right. Yeah, so the spotted towhee also has red flanks on the side. Yeah, nice. Yeah, those are all really great ways to tell. And I think I would also add, yeah, the towhee's tail is longer than the junco's tail. Yeah, and they'll often kind of like hold it upright as well sometimes. Yeah, those are all awesome ways to tell them apart. Awesome, cool. Let's go on to the next one, the next challenge. Cool. So here we have two birds. What are the differences? And have any of you perhaps, do you know what they are? And even if you don't know what the species are, maybe we can also start narrowing it down to family. Like, is it a heron or is it an eagle? Oh my gosh, Uri knows. Yeah, that's right. It is a green-winged teal on the left and an American widgeon on the right. Wow, Uri and Tene, you you know your stuff. So what are the differences between them? Yeah, the head color is different. Nice, Raiden. The head color is slightly different. Both of them do have that kind of green stripe, but the widgeon has this kind of bright white forehead. Yes, that's one way to tell. Leia, or Jojo, they say the one on the left has brown plumage on the head. Yeah, that's right. It looks kind of chestnutty. Yeah, whereas kind of the cheek of the American widgeon is definitely not that color. And the body color is different as well. Yeah, that's right. And you can tell the teal's body is gray. Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, you guys have really got this down. Yeah, those are all awesome things to look for. And I would actually add as well, yes, Uri says green stripe on the teal's wing. I would also say that the teal on the left has kind of this buffy colored bum. So that's also kind of like a telling sign, and also has this kind of stripe on its shoulder that also the American widgeon does not have. Cool, okay, and I think we have one more, Graham. Cool. And now we have two more birds. Do you know what they are? And what are the differences? Okay, Uri says, oh yeah, that's right. It is a, yes. Oh my gosh. So it is a northern flicker on the right and a downy woodpecker on the left. Leia and Jojo, they say the one on the left has a monochrome, yes, they have monochrome colors, but the one on the right has a bit of orange. That's right, yeah. The monochrome basically means that like very dull colors, black and white, whereas the northern flicker has, you know, red and orange. The face color is different, that's right. So I actually have a question to all of you. Yeah, flicker has an orange cheek. How do you know that the one on the left is a downy woodpecker and not a hairy woodpecker? I don't know if you know the answer to this, but because they look very similar sometimes, especially when you get a photo of one, you don't really know how big the bird is in real life. So you can't tell necessarily with size if it's from a photo. But there's another way to tell that it's a downy and not a hairy. Do you guys know? Tane says it doesn't have a red patch on its head. So I don't know what you necessarily mean that. Well, yeah, so downies and hairies, the males will have actually red patches on their head and the females won't, but that's true for both of them. Okay, I'll tell you the answer then, that's okay. So downies and hairies, they look really similar, but you can also tell by beak size. So downy woodpeckers have very small kind of stubby beaks, but hairy woodpeckers will have really, really long beaks compared to their head, kind of like the same length of the head. That's how long their bill will be. So this downy woodpecker in the picture has a very, very short stubby bill. So that's how we know it's a downy and not a hairy. But yeah, good work, guys. You really seem to know your stuff. Yeah, so awesome, cool. I think that's all for the bird challenges. Oh, Tame asks, like pileated woodpeckers. Pileated woodpeckers, they are, yeah, they're quite large. They also have some differences between males and females. Both of them kind of have these mustaches also that we kind of see with northern flickers. So there is kind of like a slight difference between males and females, but not very much, kind of like flickers. Okay, cool. I think off to you now, Graham.
Sure, yeah. All right. So that was an awesome way to learn about how you can identify birds when you're seeing them. But a lot of times when we're out going for walks and in the woods, you don't actually see birds and all you can do is hear them. So it's also really fun to try practicing listening for birds and identifying them by listening. And while it takes a long time to get used to identifying birds to species by listening, it's fun to just kind of listen to and explore the variation in bird song. So we're going to do some of that here. First off, as a way to test to make sure I'm sharing sound correctly and you guys can all hear the bird song, I'm going to just play orange-crowned warbler, and that's who's hiding in the flowers here. I'm going to play an orange-crowned warbler song. Excellent. I see some comments that you can hear it, so that's great. The next few slides here, I'm going to have a bunch of different videos of birds and singing birds and birding through video camera. So as long as you can hear the birds, you'll be able to participate in this. So a lot of people mentioned that hummingbirds were their favorite bird. And so here's a short video of an Anna's hummingbird that I took here in Delta, British Columbia. And Anna's hummingbirds spend all winter here, so we're lucky to have hummingbirds year-round in this part of Canada. So that's a male Anna's hummingbird. And you can hear it displaying. And so that's its little display call, and they'll do that from perches. And then I'm not able to capture this on video, but it'll then fly up in the air and it'll do these big, large U-shaped flights. And at the bottom of that flight, its wings will make noise. And that's how it does displays when it's in breeding season, like it is now. All right, so this next video is going to have a lot of birdsong in it. So turn up your speakers and you can close your eyes and listen, or just watch the trees and listen. But as you watch and listen to it, I want you to try to think how many different bird songs you're hearing. And this is very hard. I took this video and was standing there listening in person, and it was hard for me to tell. But it's just a fun way to see and hear how many birds can be singing at once. Do you guys want to hear that again? Yeah?
Yeah, let's do it again.
I'll play it one more time. Yeah, I see some guesses and some species guesses, which is awesome. So 6, 7, 9 people are estimating for how many species they thought they might have heard. Here, I'm going to bring up the next slide, which has photos of the birds that I heard and saw while I was there. So these are all the species that I'm pretty sure I heard in this video, and I may have missed some, but it looks like you guys are right on. So I had 8 species.
Yeah, that was really hard. They were all mixed together.
Yeah, it was a pretty amazing treat. And so I took this 3 or 4 weeks ago, which is right in the middle of migration here in Vancouver. And so you get these places where all of a sudden in one tree you can have this many different species all singing together. And during the breeding season, they might not all be in the same habitat, but during migration you can find them all together. So on the left side of the screen here were the 3 different warblers that I had and heard in that tree. So the yellow-rumped warbler, which is a really common bird here in Vancouver. A couple of them will spend the winter here, and then we get a ton of them during migration in April and May. And then throughout June and July, we have a few of them that stay here and breed. There's also a couple Wilson's warblers singing, which don't breed here, but during migration, we get huge numbers of them. And sometimes there are flocks of hundreds of them all together. And they're a really beautiful, tiny little bird with a black cap. Someone said they had a Wilson's warbler visit our patio. That's awesome. That's a really fun bird to see from your porch. There's also this orange-crowned warbler, a more drab-looking little bird, but a really cool little bird that goes all the way up west. Then there was a warbling vireo singing in there. Another kind of drab-looking bird, but breeds all throughout British Columbia and has a really nice song. There's this beautiful bright western tanager, and I wish I could get a video of one, but I'm not quite talented enough to get a video of them as they're flying around the tops of trees. But they fly through Vancouver and go up into the mountains and breed a lot in the mountains. And then I bet all of you know these birds on the right. So there's an American robin that was calling. There's a red-winged blackbird singing from the swamp that's nearby to this video site. And there's an Anna's hummingbird also. All right, so next we're gonna do some virtual birding, and it would be great if we could go out for a walk all together, but this is how we're gonna do it instead. Is I'm gonna show you some videos from some walks around Delta that I've done, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about the different birds that I saw and heard in them. and you can ask questions about the habitat or the birds I'm talking about. If you hear a bird and I don't mention it, let me know, and that's awesome. Or if you hear birds as the video is going and you want to say what birds you're hearing, we'd love to hear that too. All right, so here's the first one. I'm gonna just keep the film or the video on this tree here, but I'm right near a swamp as well, so keep your ears out. So it's a little windy, which always makes birding harder. But the main bird you can hear there singing over and over is this yellow warbler here. I'll pull up another photo. So this yellow warbler, they're one of the later warblers to arrive to Vancouver area, but they're also one of the most widespread warblers in North America. And so they're found all over the US and all over Canada. I think they've been documented breeding in every province and territory in Canada. So they have this huge range, and they're a really beautiful little bird. And if you want to try to remember their song, it sounds like sweet, 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 sweeter than sweet. And the ones here in Vancouver seem to say that really, really quickly. So that's a good way to remember their pretty song. And there's also a song sparrow singing in the background, which is expected because anywhere you're in kind of marshy or wet habitat here, you can often hear a song sparrow. I asked, was there a merlin there? I didn't hear one, but there easily could have been. I think there was also a northern flicker that called once during that video, but there may have been some other things I missed as well. Someone else asked, where would you recommend best places to look for birds? There's a lot of really good places, but really if you go anywhere that's got a good amount of green space, so a park that's got trees, especially if it's got some different habitats, if it's got a little pond or some kind of grassland field areas and some trees, anywhere that has some different habitats, you're going to find some really good birds. If you can make it out to places like Delta or the mountains and do some local traveling, there's some really interesting spots along the coast or up in the mountains that you get very different and very cool birds.
Oh, and I'll add just one more thing about eBird. eBird is a really cool resource where you can actually find out where there are hotspots near you. So if you go to eBird under Explore Birds, there's kind of like a little tab where you can say Explore Hotspots, and then you'll get a whole kind of map of the world, and you can just zoom into where you live and see where you have hotspots near you. So that's also an awesome way to find out where the hotspots are and what birds have been seen there recently too.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll share some links for that actually at the end of the presentation. So that's a good point, thanks. All right, so we're a little further on our walk. Here's another video. I'm looking out over some water. You can see cattails in the distance, and there's some trees up close here. So this is a great kind of spot to go looking for birds because you have a whole bunch of different habitats, so you're likely to find lots of things. Yeah, someone mentioned, Tanae mentioned spotted towhee, and I think there was a spotted towhee, and there's definitely some marsh wrens singing, and then the closest bird that you can hear singing is actually a song sparrow again. So song sparrow and marsh wrens are, if you're in this kind of habitat in BC, you're very likely to hear song sparrows and marsh wrens. Song sparrows have the nice song that you can hear closer up, and I can play it again if you want. And marsh wrens kind of chatter and make a lot of aggressive sounding noises from the cattails, and they're almost always making noise. I really like marsh wrens because they're this tiny little brown bird, and they are really vocal and defend their territory really well, and are always making noise. So they're really cool little birds.
And sometimes you'll see them doing the splits as they hold on to like 2 twigs, like, you know, on each side of them. It's really cool.
All right, let's keep going. Here's a short video of a great blue heron that I watched hunting for fish, and he'd found the perfect spot. So he was just standing stationary and watching fish come past him. Have you guys seen great blue herons? Yeah? They're a really cool bird. And the great blue herons we have here in coastal British Columbia, at least, are actually their own subspecies of great blue heron called the Pacific great blue heron. And they're smaller than normal great blue herons, and they also have a wider diet. So most herons only eat things like frogs and fish, but our herons will actually walk through fields and will hunt for things like moles and small mice. And so they're really cool special herons we have here on the coast. Awesome, someone's seen one catch a trout. That's really cool. It looks like someone asked what the marsh wren sounds like. I'll play a video of one later, or a recording of one later specifically, so you can hear it after the presentation. You saw one catch a bullfrog. That's amazing. Great blue herons and a couple other species like this, like common loons, that go after fish, can catch amazingly big fish that look way bigger than their head. And it's amazing that they can eat them. So it's really cool you got to see that. All right, next we're visiting a pond with a lot of red-winged blackbirds calling from it. You see this tree in the distance, this big round tree? That's where all of that bird song from before was. So this is where those red-winged blackbirds in that video were calling from. So it's just noisy red-winged blackbirds there at this pond. And I bet all of you could recognize a male red-winged blackbird, this bird here on the left. They're very easy to ID. They're an all-black bird with a red wing, as their name implies. But a lot of people have trouble with the female red-winged blackbirds because they're very tricky-looking birds. They kind of look like a sparrow. They're in weird habitats. And so getting to recognize these guys is also really cool. Female red-winged blackbirds build the nests that males will breed in, and build really cool nests tucked into cattails, and will be flying around really actively this time of year as they're feeding young or continuing to build nests. I also wanted to share this really cool red-winged blackbird that I saw recently. Does anyone want to say what they think this might be or why they think it looks so different? Does anyone know?
Yeah, it looks so unusual. I've never seen one like that.
So it's got this black head like normal. You can still see its red wing patch, but its whole body and tail were white. So this is actually a lutistic red-winged blackbird. Okay, some people thought maybe a juvenile, maybe a hybrid. Those were my first thoughts at first. And then I took this photo and I looked at it more. And what it actually is a genetic condition that a lot of birds get, where they don't get pigment in all of their feathers. And so this is a normal red-winged blackbird, and I'll play you a video next so you can see that it sings just like a normal red-winged blackbird, but it's just missing pigment. And so this part of its body has normal pigment, and this part of its body is white. And so you end up with these really, really cool looking birds. So here it is singing. Just a cool different bird for you guys to see. I saw this bird in Twassen, and I haven't seen it recently. I've heard some other people have seen it around Delta, but I think it's moved on since, so I'm not sure where it is now. But I saw it in Twassen when I first found it. All right, now we're going into a forest, and I really like birding in forests. It can be really hard to see birds in forests, and so sometimes just stopping and listening is the best way to go birding in forests. So here's this forest pathway. So it could be really hard to hear all the different things. So I'm just going to put them up here. Yeah, someone heard a robin. That's awesome. That's great. We're still near a swamp, and so of course there's still song sparrows singing, as there always are. And in a lot of the forests in southern British Columbia, there's often spotted towhees, and there was one again here. But I think the coolest bird in this video is the Swainson's thrush. That you can hear singing very briefly right in the middle. But I'm going to play another video so you can hear this really beautiful Swainson's thrush song. So listen up for it. It sings kind of right in the middle of the video clip. It's this really beautiful spiraling kind of flute-like song. So that's the Swainson's thrush, and you'll find them in these big, mature, deciduous forests like this one here. So really tall trees with leaves on them. And they're a really cool bird that breeds all throughout southern British Columbia. And so I think that's all the videos we have. These are some of the different resources that we've talked about, but really we'd like to just hear your questions about birds, and we can pull up information and share more videos like the marsh wren call, and I'll work on pulling that up now. And so feel free to ask questions in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question in person, you can do that too. But we're happy to answer any kind of bird question you may have.
I have a question, actually. So how would you, because learning birds by ear is really, really difficult. So do you have any suggestions on how people can start to go about learning birds by ear?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think one of the best early ways to start is really getting to know some of your local birds. So going out and spending time listening and seeing if you can watch them while you're listening to them is one of the best ways I've found to kind of really secure those bird songs in your head. So if you can watch song sparrows singing while it's singing, then that song will bring up that picture of it singing, and that'll help you a lot. But there's also a lot of really cool online resources where you can search a bird and listen to a bunch of different songs from them. And one of the best ones here in Canada is Dendroica, and I can share a link to that actually. You can also try eBird. eBird has lots of audio recordings, and you can look up certain species that you want to learn and try doing that.
Oh, we have some questions here in the chat, so I'll just briefly answer those first. And then, yeah, so why do some robins, I guess the question is, why do some robins have red breasts and why others have orange breasts? And making those really colorful pigments takes a lot of energy and takes a lot of nutrients. So usually only males, usually only males will kind of bother putting lots of energy and resources into making these beautiful colors. And so females oftentimes aren't the ones kind of showing off and trying to attract a mate. Usually it's more important for females who tend to be the ones who sit on the nest, and it's more important for them to be kind of duller. So you'll actually see that females are the ones that don't have really that as bright a breast as the male robins do. And you'll see that in many birds, that the male is brighter than the female. But not all. There are some exceptions where you do have some kind of gender role swaps in birds, which is really cool. Yeah, how did you become a bird expert? Graham, do you want to answer this one?
Sure. Growing up, I had parents that really were into nature, and so I've always spent some time listening to birds, and I've always known I've liked birds. And so it took me quite a while. It wasn't until I was probably 20 years old that I decided birds are really, really awesome, and I want to spend my life studying and watching birds. And so then I decided to go to school specifically for birding and for birds, and became an ornithologist. And so it was about being in nature a lot and connecting with nature as a kid, and then realizing that birds were the part of nature that I most enjoyed. And so then you can do bird work and be a bird expert, whether you've gone to school for it or you just spend a lot of time doing it. And so, yeah, I decided to spend a lot of time doing school to become a bird expert, but that's not necessary at all.
Cool. And if anyone wants to unmute themselves to ask a question as well, I think there's a way to raise your hand, but I think we're, so I guess feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and jump in. Okay, Uri has a question. I think, yeah, go ahead.
What's your favorite bird?
Mine? Yeah, I think mine would definitely be like all the chickadees. There are many different types of chickadees, like mountain chickadee, boreal chickadee, black-capped chickadee, and so forth. And I love that whole group because they are such small birds, but they're really fierce. You know, they're small, but very hardy, and they can get through cold, tough winters, and they're just so resilient. So I would definitely choose the chickadee. Oh, Tane has a question. Yes, go ahead.
Where in British Columbia is the best place to find a red-shouldered hawk?
Oh, can you say that one more time? I think you're cutting out a little bit.
Where in BC is the best place to find a red-shouldered hawk?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think Graham probably knows the local spots a little bit better than I do. So
That's a hard one. They're not very common in British Columbia. Red-shouldered hawks are more of a southern bird, and occasionally will come up this far north. But I don't know that many have come into British Columbia.
Very few red-shouldered hawks, only one.
You've only seen one? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they're very common in British Columbia, but keep an eye out. And if you do see one, that's a really fun bird to try to report through citizen science, so through things like eBird, because it's more rare. So that's really cool.
Blue jay. They imitate red-shouldered hawks all the time.
I had a little bit of trouble hearing exactly what you said because you were cutting out. It was something about blue jays, right? Okay. I guess if your audio is a little, I think if you try putting it in the chat, I don't know if other people can hear you, but if you try putting it in the chat, maybe we'll hear what you said a little bit better.
See another question here. Why do birds have a different song? So different species all have very different songs, and that is interesting. A lot of it is like their colors, and that they've evolved over many, many, many years and slowly separated. And so all warblers have different songs, but a lot of them are more similar than they are to sparrow songs or to thrush songs. And so it's just a matter of them slowly evolving away from each other. And so their songs sound similar, but are a little bit different. And it's also how they can recognize their own species.
I have a question. Why is it usually tropical birds that are pets?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of tropical birds, they tend to be really, really colorful, sometimes more so than the birds here. And I think people really like kind of, you know, the exotic feel of a lot of these birds. And so I think that's why. And also a lot of the tropical birds, that's where you get the parrots and the budgies, which, yeah, parrots are definitely one of the more kind of intelligent birds. So I think that is also another reason for why people are drawn to that group of birds. Although I should say that there's also, you know, a whole kind of like illegal pet trade, and that also, so if you're ever interested in buying an exotic bird, then some of them are definitely acquired illegally, so that's always good to know. But yeah, I know someone who actually had a pet starling, and I think Mozart as well had a pet starling. And so, so it's definitely possible, I think, to have, you know, I guess a pet bird like that from here. But also a lot of the ones here are definitely protected by like the Migratory Bird Act. So you can't own any native birds as pets. Yeah, and I think a lot of the ones in pet stores actually, I think are bred. I don't know, Graham, you might. Yeah, I think they're bred. Right. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
See, someone else asked, how many different kinds of birds live in Canada? That's a good question. So I'm going to answer it in two parts. In Canada, there's a lot of species that are seen here, but don't actually live here or breed here. And these are birds that are migrating to the US, for example, and fly too far, or they're migrating to Europe and they fly the wrong direction and they come here. And so if you include all of those birds, there's about 675 birds, maybe 650, somewhere in that range of birds that have visited Canada and been seen in Canada. But in terms of birds that actually breed in Canada, there's about 400 or a little over 400 that regularly breed in Canada. What other questions do we have?
Why do falconers use eagles, falcons, and hawks? I actually don't know much about falconing. Graham, do you?
I don't know too much either. I imagine these species are they have a diet that's easier for humans to provide. It'd be pretty hard for humans to provide warblers with insects constantly, but providing pieces of meat for these raptors is easier. And so I imagine it's easier to train them. And then they're often, and historically, I think, used more for hunting. And so that's why they're using and kind of domesticating species like this, because they're useful for hunting.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Oh, are all male bird how do you say that?
Do all the male birds have different dances?
Do all the male birds have do all bird males have different dances, or are some alike?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, you know what? There's huge variety. Oh my goodness. And I think that question also has to do with evolution. We have about 10,000 birds on this planet. And so many of them have kind of evolved different dances. It's crazy. So you'll have grouse that have their own kind of lecking ritual where they all they have these air sacs, and it's very elaborate. And they have this whole lecking ground where the males basically, fight with each other for females. And then you'll have the hummingbirds, as Graham mentioned before, where they do this really cool kind of like flying pattern. They'll do these huge flying loop-de-loops in the air to try and attract their females. And yeah, there's huge variety. Usually you'll have similarities across groups. So hummingbirds will all tend to do that kind of a similar type of flight display. Grouse will tend to do the same kind of thing within kind of their taxonomic group as well. So you will see some similarities somehow, but generally the further, like the less related the birds are, the different the kind of male dancing ritual will be. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Ori, do you have a question?
Thank you.
What's your favorite bird call? Like, I know white-crowned sparrow call.
Favorite call. That's a good one. I think some of the thrushes might be my favorite. So you remember the Sorenson thrush I played? Ones like that. And I think maybe the hermit thrush is one of my favorite bird calls. And they'll sing in the morning, and they'll also sing in the evening. So sometimes if you go out into forests in the evening, especially up in the mountains in British Columbia, you can hear hermit thrushes singing, and they have this really beautiful kind of eerie song. So I think that's my favorite one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Someone asked about what marsh wrens sound like, so I want to share that. I'm just going to try sharing my screen here. And all of you see this thing with a marsh wren on it. All right, so here's what a marsh wren song sounds like. So kind of a buzzy, repeated little call. And here I can even play a video of one so you can see it as well. So very feisty little birds, and make this repeated little buzzy call.
Nice.
I have another question.
Oh yeah, okay.
What materials do hummingbirds use for their nest because it's really sticky? And it sticks on the branch.
Yes, yeah. I know, I don't think I'll be able to answer this very well. I know some of the materials, but not all of them. Graham, do you know?
Small sticks usually.
There you can.
Hummingbirds will sometimes use sticks. A lot of times they use really fine things like moss, and they'll actually even use spider webs, which might help make them sticky. And sometimes you'll see hummingbirds flying next to your house and flying up under the roof and grabbing at things. And sometimes it's for insects, but sometimes it's because they collect spider webs and add them into their nests. And they like to have nests that are really small when they have eggs, but they're able to expand as the chicks grow because the eggs are so tiny, and then they have several chicks in there. And so they want these stretchy, sticky nests like you described.
Oh, so thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And different birds will kind of use different ways to kind of hold their nest together. Like some swallows, for example, will use like mud. Some will use like spit. So there are many different ways of holding nests together, which is really interesting.
What is the most common hummingbird seen in Vancouver?
Ooh, okay. Well, this time of year, you'll see a lot of Anna's hummingbirds. So I think Graham showed a video of one earlier, kind of making that cool kind of squeaky noise. And you'll also get Rufus hummingbird as well. And those, yeah, the males are like very orange and very, very cool looking. So those are kind of two to keep an eye out for. Yeah, Tene?
There's the ruby-throated hummingbird. And so I was thinking, I saw an osprey a few days ago.
That's cool.
And so
that's really awesome.
It was flying with a golden eagle looking for fish. Otherwise, it was hunting some geese or killdeer.
That's cool. How do you know it was a golden eagle and not a bald eagle?
Oh, it was more of the golden brown color.
Okay. Yeah, just one thing to watch out for is juvenile golden eagles. They can actually look kind of brownish and goldeny before they become adults.
They have white patches on their.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
That's for the immature and the juvenile.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, sounds like you know your stuff.
But the juvenile bald eagle is also the same shape as the juvenile golden eagle and the adult too, except the eagle I saw was a bit bigger than a juvenile bald eagle.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there are some differences that you've picked out there. Yeah, that's totally right. The juvenile bald eagle will definitely, yeah, there are some differences. Graham, there are also a few, yeah, we have a lot of questions right now. At some point, I would like to kind of share a few resources, online resources and others for kind of identifying birds. So
Sure, yeah.
I can do that now or later. What do you think?
Let's answer, Ori's got her hand up here, and then
yeah,
let's do some resources after that.
Okay, sounds good. Okay.
Collect.
Try again.
Do hummingbirds collect the stuff to make their nests where they are gonna make their nests?
Yeah, I think they probably collect it really close to their nest. So if you're seeing a hummingbird collecting nesting material, there's probably one nesting pretty close to you.
And I saw a hummingbird getting cobwebs at my house.
Oh, that's really cool. So yeah, you probably have a hummingbird nest somewhere nearby to your house. So you should keep an eye out. And if you see a female hummingbird, you can watch where it goes, and the female is probably going to return to the nest, and the male is going to stay up on a high branch or something and defend the territory. So watch out for female hummingbirds.
Do hummingbirds defend their territory?
Yeah, they do.
How do they?
They will chase other birds, and hummingbirds are actually really amazing. They're very tiny, as you know, but they'll chase off big birds like starlings. I've seen one chasing a crow before, and they'll chase anything that comes too close to their nest.
Will they take the risk of chasing hawks?
I think they probably would. They probably aren't too worried about being grabbed by a hawk, but it's also unlikely a hawk would be threatening a hummingbird nest too much. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That would it would be more of a skunk idea or a Gila monster spot. And I also have northern flicker's nest outside my house.
Oh, nice. Like a cup nest, or are they in a cavity?
A tree cavity.
A tree cavity. Cool. Nice. Okay,
and
cool.
I hardly ever get to see the flicker.
I think.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we're actually really running low on time. So we'll just see. Yeah. So I love field guides. They cost $30 or $40 or however much it is, but it's one of my favorite field guides, and I really recommend this one for kind of birds of North America. It's very comprehensive, and I really love it. So if you can afford it, I really recommend this as an investment. If there are also online resources though that are free, so this is also a really great option, especially for also.
Oh, it looks like Caroline had some technical difficulties, but definitely do check out Merlin Bird ID. It's a really nice phone app. Excellent, yeah. It's very good to use, and one of the best features about it is you can put in where you are and what color the bird is and how big you think the bird is, and it can help you identify it from that. It looks like Jocelyn has a question. Do you have your hand up?
Yeah. There's a mother robin that made her nest on her porch.
Oh, cool. Are you able to see into it or not quite? Is it too high?
Yes, she has 5 eggs.
5
but
eggs?
She keeps on building the nest up.
Huh. Sometimes they'll do that. They'll build nests on top of old nests, and so they'll look taller.
I can show you it.
That's all right. But if you want to email me photos of it, that'd be really cool. I'll put my email into the chat, and I would love to see photos of robin nests. And
Okay.
for everyone, I'd also, this is a good chance to recommend Project Nest Watch. And if you have a nest like that, you can enter information about it, and it's really helpful information for scientists that might want to learn about when birds are breeding and how successful breeding is for birds. So you can check out Project Nest Watch, and I'll also put that in the chat here. Oh, good, we've got Caroline back. Oh, you're muted, Caroline.
Oh.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, sorry, I don't know if you mentioned Merlin and talked about that one, but yeah, that's a really awesome free app that I really recommend and is really good for starting out.
Yep. Excellent.
I can recommend to you the Sibley Guide Song Sleuth.
What about
also
the Sibley Guide, sorry?
Song Sleuth.
I don't know. Okay, sorry. I don't know if other people can hear you, but you are cutting out a little bit from me. There is an app for Sibley as well.
Wait.
Yeah, there's a Sibley app as well where you can actually get the calls and songs of all the birds as well. Song Sleuth. Yes, yes. There are so many awesome apps out there. So those are just a few that are really great. There are many more out there that are also great resources. Cool.
Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for being so engaged and having so many great questions. It's really fun to help answer them, and feel free to reach out to us if you have more questions or want to learn more about how to start birding. We're happy to encourage and help you with that.
Yeah, thanks for all of you for tuning in. It was really awesome getting to know all of you a little bit, as much as we can through through the internet.
Thanks so much, Graham and Carolyn. It was awesome to have you here today, answering all the questions and being our experts. Thanks so much.
Yeah, no
Graham,
problem.
put in the chat there if you have other questions or you have photos of things around your house, you can email them to Graham and he'll continue to take your questions offline.
Yeah, and honestly, the best way to get to know birds is to just get outside and take the time to watch them. So whether it's from your backyard or really from wherever, birds are everywhere. That's the really wonderful thing about birds. So yeah, spend some time and yeah, you can see birds everywhere. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much. I will sign off now.
Great.
All right, bye.
Bye, everyone.